Yeah, I guess like what would be your recommendation on I guess when I say execution, it's more like situational execution. So yeah, like I mean I'll play matches where I don't even think it's a peach. I guess like maybe this is my own self of like trying not to blame my character. But there are definitely matches I played where I've been like, I don't think this is a peach thing. Like, why am I jumping here when I know I shouldn't be jumping? And then I'll like go home and try to shadow box the situation of trying to like see the situation happen and training myself to sort of hold shield or not jump or stay on the ground. And then I enter a bracket match or friendlies. And I feel like I never broke that habit. I think this is one of the problems I've been having where there's a lot of like micro situations that I think have happened hundreds or thousands of times where I know what the counterplay is. And I haven't found a good way to ingrain it into my autopilot or muscle memory.
This is not an easy thing to do as far as this is trying to develop new habits for yourself is what you're trying to do at this point. It's just like in real life, if you have a bad habit, you don't just say, okay, I'm not smoking anymore, I'm not drinking anymore, then you're just done. You can try to actively work on it for a very long time, and it can still be a problem, or you can still struggle with it for a very long time. So as far as like, let's say, trying to focus on, would you say jumping at the wrong time, or that you're not thinking of jumping or whatever, like, let's say as the example, are you messing up the execution as far as like your timing is off, or you're messing up the execution as in the moment you completely forget to do it and now you're on a different track?
I feel like I tell myself like these things to notice in a match. Like I guess maybe the grabbing example. Like I kept getting grabbed in my shield, and in my head I was like, just spot dodge. Like you know they're gonna grab, and they'll grab every single time. But then when the moment comes to it, my fingers just don't do the spot dodge or something like
Okay,
that.
this is something also I think, I'm trying to think of how I worded this in the past. So instead of trying to directly counter, let's say, getting someone to grab and then spot dodging it, because you're trying to bait them into grabbing by shielding, I'm assuming. And then as I say,
Right.
okay, he's in shield, I'm now going to, for you, on reaction, spot dodge this grab. What you could be doing instead is going into like I guess another timeline is the way I like to describe it, a parallel timeline, another timeline, and say instead of going running up and shielding, you could be dashing in and then dashing away, or dashing in and going for an empty hop and getting yourself in an entirely different situation where you're not relying on your reaction time. You're basically playing
Right.
rock, paper, scissors. So as they go for their dash away, instead of running in and shielding, you're running it and short hopping, in the case of Peach, floating at a height where you can't get grabbed. Or dashing in, then dashing away. And when they go for their grab, you now have a ton of time to react to the fact that they missed their grab, and then you can get your punish.
Yeah, I guess even with like some of these, I guess as you say, alternate timelines. Yeah, I guess like I have a notebook of like common situations I found myself in, and like dozens of options that I could use depending on matchups.
Okay.
And I still feel like even knowing things that may or may not work, like I'm unable to even option select any of them in the moment. And then I sort of end up in the same unfavorable position, even though I know I shouldn't be there.
I'm trying to think as far as context within the game. Would you say that these things are happening when you're trying to make a comeback, or would you say that you're winning and then you start to think about these things and then you start to throw?
I feel like I noticed them maybe like after it's hard to place. I guess both when I'm throwing, like I'm losing, and when I'm winning, I'm able to notice these things.
Mhm.
Yeah, I would just say like I guess the moment it happens twice, at that point I'm able to sort of ingrain it into my brain. I don't know if that really helps. Sorry.
No, no, it's not for you to be helping me. I'm trying to help you. I got to figure it out.
Right.
So I'm just thinking if you, because the context matters a lot more. Because I've talked about this in the past as well with other players, where it's like, oh, if they go into a set or go into a game and they say, okay, 3, 2, 1, go, and they just start doing what they want, they start to destroy the opponent. They absolutely start to coast or relaxed. They start to relax their gameplay. I think what might also be happening to you is if you're getting into a state where it's like, okay, we're playing, we're having a great time, I'm winning, it's going well, and then things start to go poorly after, because like maybe you aren't noticing that shift in yourself, where it's like, yeah, I'm not really trying to like tech anymore, or I'm not trying to parry, I'm not really worried about getting like crazy combos, let's get like a dash attack here and there. So now your punish game is now very lackluster compared to like super sweating it out. I could say if and when that happens, that would be where the constant of your focus is falling apart.
Right.
And that's where it's like, okay, I was doing well. Now I'm not doing, like, what happened? Why am I not doing well anymore? And then you start to get into the over-analyzing phase and say, okay, now that I'm not doing well, why am I not doing well? Okay, well, it's because of, let's say, what you think you're doing yourself, right? So now you're looking at yourself and saying, okay, I'm getting grabbed. Well, how do I not get grabbed in this situation? I'm going to spot dodge, because I know that that technically is a direct counter to it. But for me, I can at least say this with regards to spot dodging. If you are trying to spot dodge grabs, you should be, at least for me, never run up shield and then spot dodge. More so if you're ever in a boxing situation where they're right up on you and you have no time to run or use your movement or rely on any sort of movement at all, that's when you should be spot dodging. If you're like, let's say in true neutral, like dashing back and forth or no one's really throwing anything out, then you're dashing up and shielding. Is that what's happening sometimes or not so much? I'm trying to paint the picture here a little bit.
I felt like it happened in a lot of like close quarters moments.
So almost like panicking situations, almost like you're right beside each other, like. Well,
Yeah, but there were also times in the game where like he'd be across the stage and running at me,
mhm.
and I knew he was gonna run up and grab, and like in my head I was like, okay, you can either spot dodge, you can jump, you can float back. There's so many options here, and I would just end up sitting in shield like with literally 3 seconds for him to run up and grab me.
Okay, so then yeah, that would be fear coming into the equation, but also what I would say is you want to work on your zone breaking. And what I mean by that is if someone's going to overextend, and let's say the center point of the stage is like neutral or the neutral position of the stage, if he has to lunge past that point and throw out his grab, you should be meeting him in the middle or almost meeting him on his side to catch him off guard. And it could be with a dash attack or a side B as Peach.
Right.
So and this is once again, you could be the aggressor in the situation versus saying, okay, well, I'm going to wait for him to get over here, be right up in my face, and then try to finesse him point blank. If that's the situation that's happening to you, I highly recommend, if there's anything you take away from any of this at all that we've talked about, besides the characters or anything at all, that's something that you have to try and stop doing immediately, because you're now putting it on yourself. And let's just paint the picture here. You're letting him get into burst zone range towards you, so he's breaking your zone and taking stage at the same time, and then you're putting yourself in an unreactable situation that you didn't have to be in. That's what's happening, for sure. That's what's happening. As far as the way that Smash goes, you're much better off to have Smash be treated like chess, where you have time to figure out what you want to do and say, if you do this, this is what's going to happen, versus saying we're both going to go at the same time, or I'm going to wait for you to make your move, and as you're making your move, I'm going to try and like pull a fast one on you. So if you think, let's say if you think to yourself, okay, I know he's going to go for a dash grab, whether it's across the entire stage or at burst range, or you're very close to each other's center stage, whatever it might be, don't try and bait the grab with, let's say, shield, or running up into his burst range and then shielding. Okay, don't bait the grab like that. Rather than that, play just slightly out of the range of his dash grab. So if he goes for a dash grab, he either completely misses, or better yet, he doesn't even try and go for a grab at all because he knows it's going to miss. This is something that I do with Falco all the time. If I get to a range where, let's say I'm fighting Joker, or it can be, I don't know, Mario, or someone who actually wants to get a grab, Sheik or Pikachu, I'm going to play at a range right outside of it, so I don't have to shield. I don't even want to shield. I want them to try and grab my movement. And if you've been watching the channel for a while, I talk about it all the time, where it's like, if you try to grab movement, you have like a 10% chance of being successful. Because if I can walk out of the way, dash out of the way, or jump, and I'm not in the middle of a move, like a grab, or shielding, or rolling, or throwing out like a fair or a forward tilt, or anything at all, the likelihood of you just lining up your dash grab perfectly with someone who's just doing nothing, and by doing nothing I mean like walking, dashing, or jumping, is basically impossible. Right? If you were to run up and shield, even though shielding is very quick, you still have to drop your shield and then run away, for example.
I guess sort of on this point, like, what would be your advice, like the best way to practice like these ideas? Like, I guess like, yeah, like one thing I wanted to practice against like a lot of Roy players, sort of this thing where they just like run straight at me, and in my head I was sort of like, the two best ways to deal with this as Peach is throw out an immediate hitbox, is they're just gonna run right into it, or like jump around it, or there's like a lot of things I could do. But I feel like even in friendlies, when I'm sort of focusing on this thing, even when I recognize the situation, I fall back into old habits. I guess I'm sort of struggling to word this question, I guess.
No, you're fine. I was gonna say this is turning into being aware of your escape routes when you're fighting somebody. So a character like Roy, there's two things here. It's escape routes against the character, but also knowing how does that character actually mechanically work. As far as Roy, his down tilt is safe, right? But his forward tilt, his double-edged dance, up tilt, obviously smash attacks, all that stuff is not safe, but it's also quite unsafe on shield. Right? They're very minus on shield. So also the end leg of them is very, very bad. Down tilt is the exception, but every other tilt, jab, all these things are very bad. So a Roy player, more often than not, if they're going to approach you with an aerial, unless they are a very patient Roy, which you don't see very often, but if they are a very patient Roy, they will jump in with an aerial, and then they might jump straight up with an aerial, or they might jump back and then come back in on the ground and then jump at you with another aerial. Or if they're going to go sicko mode, they're going to land with a jump in, land with an aerial, and rise with an aerial towards you. If they do any of those things, those are the harder things to deal with. But if it's like, let's say an average or mid-level Roy player, a lot of them will do landing nair or landing fair into jab or into forward tilt or into like dash back double-edged dance. And they'll either
Right.
try and catch you for overextending, or they're going to try and catch you for trying to like attack them out of shield if they happen to hit your shield. With regards to the escape routes, let's say against a Roy player, if you let him push up on you and corner you, and you have nowhere to back up to, he can now throw out a landing fair or landing nair, and then immediately go for a forward tilt, and you can't go anywhere. As far as like you have to now roll or shield or just wait, and hopefully he doesn't hit you. You can try and jump too. But if he does, let's say go for landing fair into rising fair and you jump, you're now off stage, and now you're being ledge trapped by Roy, which is not a great time. So going back to the escape routes, as far as how do you want to set this up so you can use your movement to protect yourself, push up on this player a little bit more. Assert yourself. You don't have to be super aggressive and try and mash on him or push buttons on him. But if you dash forwards and now he's trying to space his landing fair or nair towards you, it's going to happen much closer to center stage versus on your side of the stage. So if he does throw that out, let's say if he goes landing fair into forward tilt, landing fair into double edge dance, and you have space to just run back or dash back. Once he's thrown out, like let's say double edge dance, that move is anywhere between -32 to around -40, depending on which swing he ends on. So you have a lot of time to get in there with a down tilt, or go for a dash attack, or you can go for like float into back air just to hit him away from you. You can come down with a nair if you want to get a crazy combo depending on his percent. But all of that is set up based on your positioning and having somewhere to go. If you have to throw yourself off stage to escape his pressure because you've backed up and you've given him too much respect, and now he has the whole stage to now jump at you when he lands with his fair, it's at like get up attack range or roll distance. As far as like, let's say if you're on the left side of the stage and he's coming from the right side of the stage, now you have nowhere to go. You either have to take this hit on shield, in which case he can go like landing fair to double edge dance, put a ton of shield pressure on you, or he can now pester your shield and wall you out from the corner, and he doesn't deserve to have that much pressure, especially if the game, let's say, just started, or you're very low percent on a second stock or third stock. Okay, does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, I guess like all these ideas like definitely make sense, and I know that this is what I should be doing. And I think I also made a little bit about this about like I've helped a lot of my friends like sort of recognize these situations and like adapt their play to it. But I can't figure out a good way to like practice these situations such that I actually do different options like in matches.
The biggest thing for me, honestly, is writing these things out. And it sounds like they might be too easy. You can write them out. You can say them as you write them out. You can tell them to other players and have them see. You can say to someone like, "What if I did this versus this setup? What would you do as the Roy player?" And you can almost link the next part of the story in the interaction between having a conversation with them. So you can say, okay, so a Roy player, if I did this to escape this part of their pressure, what would they do next? I can now be prepared for that next thing. Or I can even try and simulate this or pull this out of somebody in a real game to now put them into a pattern to say, okay, I'm going to checkmate their panic option or checkmate their second poke option. Or checkmate the fact that they might, let's say, do landing fair, then dash back side B, and then you can punish that.
Right. Yeah, I guess from like a theoretical perspective, like I've been keeping a journal since I first started playing, and like I think I have a document titled like situations versus Roy, where I've talked to a friend about it who also plays Roy, and we've like dissected like VODs together and stuff like that. It's really just I don't know, maybe it is as simple as just like I struggle to put theory into practice, and can't find a good way to do that.
Yeah, even with what you're saying too, like if you're doing all this stuff and you're being very diligent with your, I guess, studies, you could say at this point, it does kind of boil down to you trusting yourself, or even in the case of practicing these things, not being afraid to be wrong. And I've talked about that too in the past, where you want to confidently be wrong when you're practicing something.
Right.
Okay, so if you think you have an idea, even if the idea is trash, say it with your whole chest. Just try it. That's what I do with Falco. That's what I do with every character I've ever played when I'm practicing them, because it's like, yeah, I'm going to jump off stage. This is probably not going to work at all. Or I'm going to go for this crazy read, and I'm going to be completely wrong. But I'm going to commit to it because I want to see how they react to me trying it. And then I'm also going to try and memorize that or record the video and say, okay, this is what I wanted to do. And let's say even we're fishing for a certain setup and it never worked. It's like, well, why? Why did it never work? It's like, okay, let's say if you're looking for a roll in read and they never did it. It's like, okay, so if you condition someone to believe that rolling in is a bad idea, now they're going for roll away or neutral get up, do you have your next punish on deck to go for the next, let's say, tech chase situation and punish a roll out or a neutral get up setup? And what happens after that? Do they now default to back into roll in because you've now punished their how they've adapted? And what's the next link in the chain every single time? On and on and on. This is what I've done, like for Falco or whoever it might be. And then it turns into play recognition as well, to say how quickly can I do this, almost like flashcards. As soon as someone misses the tech, I'm paying attention. Did they miss their tech or roll in, out, whatever it might be? Did they tech in place? Like, they don't even have to miss a tech. Just a tech situation, period. Because whatever they chose it for a reason. Whether or not they know the reason, they subconsciously did one thing above anything else. And you can try and capitalize on that. And then that's how you start to condition somebody. These are things that, as much as it feels like it's hypothetical or theory crafted, there's a reason why it works so often in my coaching videos as well. It's like, oh, you air dodged once? I believe that you have an air dodging habit forever until you don't do it. And if you don't
Right.
stop, you're gonna lose. I think the answer there for you, at least this is my answer, and it might not be the answer that you wanted, but the answer is you have to just try and go for these things and then record. Almost, you could even do it like a science project. That's how I treat this. You're like, I'm gonna go for something, record the answer, and if it doesn't match my, let's say, thesis statement or whatever it is, why what happened? Why did it change? Or why was the outcome different from what I thought it was going to be? If you thought someone was going to roll in and they didn't, could you have done something different to get them to roll in, for example, or roll out, or whatever you're looking for? And then keep on, like, almost taking live notes would be, I guess, a pretty interesting way of saying it, to say, okay, the test subject or whoever the player I was fighting against didn't roll in. I'm going to change one variable. So what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to dash towards them. If I dash towards them, if they still don't roll in, okay, next time I'm going to throw out a dash attack and catch them, or try and jab lock them. Probably not as Peach, but as a character that could do that. And I'm going to try and punish their mistech or the roll away or whatever. And if you get that punish, what happens after that? So let's say you're keeping a log of all these things. They missed their tech, they rolled away, I got them with a down tilt into just down tilt fair, got them off stage, got a ledge trap, whatever. Next time the same situation happens again with a missed tech, you're going to dash up and go for the down tilt. So you're going to keep everything the exact same and not change any variables, because now it's their turn to change a variable and adapt. If it works again, then you're golden. But if they change something, and let's say they go for get up attack, why did they go for get up attack instead of roll in? You got to ask yourself that, right? And then say, okay, well, what can I do against get up attack? Well, I can shield then up smash. I could float over the get up attack and come down with a down air. I can dash out of the way, then come back in with a side B. There's all kinds of things that you could do, depending on whatever you want to do, depending on the situation. Right. And then you can go from there to the next thing as well. Okay, so if they got punished for get up attack, do they go back to roll away? Can I here's another question, and I do this for Falco too. Can I punish or threaten to punish get up attack and roll away at the same time? Peach could do that. The way I would do that as Peach is either float over top of them or float over top of them and a bit past them, so if they roll in front of you, you can get an immediate grab. Or if they happen to roll in, you can land and come down with a side B and catch the roll in. If you're slow, you could dash and try and get a grab as well, because if they happen to shield because they're scared after they roll in, then you can catch them. If they go for the get up attack, you just come straight down on top of them because you're floating over top of it. And that's a lot of things that we just kind of covered very quickly, but this is at least how I operate when I'm trying to figure out a situation over and over and over again, to say, I'm going to go from the macro. Let's say we're just working on tech chasing, and I'm going to go down to, let's say, miss techs, and then from there, theory craft every single situation that could happen as far as miss tech, and then rolling in, rolling out, doing get up attack, neutral get up, or just laying there. It really does boil down to your belief system in yourself. To say, can I actually get someone in the situation? And when they do, I'm going to pull the trigger, and like I said, confidently try it, and if I'm wrong, then I'm wrong, right? Versus putting yourself in the what if category, like what if they just don't do what I think is going to happen? It's like, okay, well, if you just do nothing, it doesn't matter what they do, they're going to be right. They can now have free range to just get up however they want to, because you're now not going to cover anything.
I guess, how do you work
do
on
that?
sort of my own time, implementing these ideas? So I guess I've had friendly sessions where, I think when I first started playing Peach, I would say I'm gonna basically only use up air because I want to know how does up air interact with so many situations. I have this in my bank of ideas, and then I'll enter a match a week later and I'll play someone who's always jumping, and I know up air is gonna shark them or catch them or anti-air them because they're not even throwing out a hitbox on the way down. And then I get into the situation and maybe I even get the float out, but the up air doesn't come out. It's just failure to execute.
I was gonna say that's exactly it. You summed it up for yourself, and that situation there turns into execution. If you're genuinely messing it up, then you weren't wrong. You just messed it up.
Right.
So that's just more practice. That's all.
I guess what's the best way to practice? Because this has been a struggle, I guess, not only with Peach, but when I played Lucina, and even to an extent with Zelda. Although with Zelda, I could argue that I never had to interact with any other opponent because I would just zone. Yeah, I haven't found a good way to approach friendlies or even training room practice such that I don't mess it up in a bracket situation.
So I'm just trying to decipher this a little bit. When you're saying, when you do it in friendlies, let's say we're talking about this, we'll say falling up air, just up air in general as a anti-air. In friendlies, are you getting it more often than not, and then tournaments happen and now you're falling apart, or are you just not getting it at all because on paper it makes sense, but in real life it doesn't work?
I feel like in friendlies, when I'm only focusing on that one thing, I get it. Like in the beginning, not so much, but by the end of the session, I know what the limits are of the move. But once I'm in a match and I'm not just like thinking like anti-air with up air and that's all you're gonna do this game, then things start to fall apart a lot.
So I would also say too, if you're in the phase where you're going like 0-2 or 1-2, if that's consistently happening, I would be going to tournaments and treating them like a coaching session. You're not going there with the intent to win the entire thing, because you're not going to like, I don't know anyone in the entire world who's gone from an 0-2 player to now winning a tournament without like going up the ranks. It doesn't really happen unless somehow you just had the greatest day of your entire life.
Right.
But if you're going to go, if you're someone who's like trying to learn the matchups or the mechanics or how things interact, and you get your character, you're past that point as far as how to play the game amongst your own character, I would be going into a set and say, as far as trying to level up as a competitive player, I'm going to try and do what I practiced in this game. And if I can't do it, and let's say if you happen to lose, it's like, okay, well, what's more important to me? Trying to win because I didn't want to waste my $10 on this particular set or on this particular tournament or whatever it was,